If you're watching this video, you, like me, are a fan of Little Nightmares, and, like me, are excited for Little Nightmares 3. As we know, Little Nightmares 3 is set to be released in 2024. We don't know exactly when yet, but finally we have a trailer and a pre-alpha gameplay released by Bandai Namco. Yes, the gameplay is a pre-alpha version, and it doesn't tell us much more about the world in Little Nightmares 3, but what it tells us, or what it shows us actually, it's very, very interesting. I'm excited, to be honest, and yeah, let's watch it together. As we saw from the trailer, our new protagonists can travel through mirrors, just like Mono and Six could travel through TV monitors in Little Nightmares 2. I like this more magical touch. It's a little cliché maybe, the whole thing about traveling through mirrors, maybe through space and time and dimensions, or maybe just through space like in this case, who knows, but yeah, maybe a little cliché, but it works for me. I'm a little surprised by all this vivid orange light. It looks so different compared to the darker tones of the first two games. But I welcome this change in cinematography, at least for this first section of the game. It looks very cool. It's less spooky, more dystopian. It reminds me of Blade Runner 2049, which is a good thing, by the way. I love that movie. We already know from the trailer that the palette of colors gets much darker in other chapters of the game. I remember the fair or circus I saw in some screenshots or in the trailer. And from the trailer we also saw other sections in what looks like the Pale City, and then a doctor's office, maybe in the hospital or maybe even in the mall. We're now climbing the city walls to get into the Necropolis, that the developers described as the city of eternal energy and certain death. Necropolis is a Greek word that means city of the dead, and we can see that this place is indeed it's a ghost town. I love when a game builds up momentum with these slow-paced sections. The slow pace gives time to our anticipation and curiosity to grow, and gives us the opportunity to take in all the little details. The first one to enter the Necropolis is Alone. Alone's look is the most post-apocalyptic of the two. She wears a green jumpsuit and an aviator helmet from where orange pigtails stick out. And she has a wrench for melee combat, but also for solving some puzzles we'll see along the way. Following her, there's Lo. Lo wears a cape and a bird mask, and the mask is similar to the big mask plague doctors would wear in 17th century Europe. Here we can see the two characters working together, like Mono and Six in Little Nightmares 2. In Little Nightmares 3 we'll be able to play either in single player, with the second character played by AI, or in 2 players online co-op. You see the giant pacifier in the left upper corner? Yeah, that's a sign of who we are going to meet. We've seen the first sign of death with the giant bug's corpse, and now what looks like a skull. We also see figures, perhaps hanging bodies, dangling from the towers in the distance, almost like insects' larvae. Nice, we also have a bow. So for both puzzles and combat, we have Lone with the wrench and Lo with bow and arrow. This new location makes me think also about Arrakis, the planet of Dune. We are now inside the windmill. I think this is why the developers have defined the Necropolis as the city of eternal energy. Given the strong and constant winds, the city can continuously produce energy. Okay, physics are a little bit off here. Did you see how fast that chest fell? The gravitational force seems too strong, like, I don't know, they're on Jupiter. But it's okay, it's a minor thing and I think it's going to be fixed before the release. More dead bugs, and I think that looks like a scarab. No, not a scarab. I think it's a rhino beetle. I wonder why there are so many dead insects but we can see lots of crows. And it's not because of the crows, because the insects are as big or bigger than the birds. Here we see the tools in action. So there is Alone using the wrench to solve the puzzle. Low using the arrow to block the mechanism. Here Low shot a bird. I don't know if it's a crow or a raven. But anyway, he missed it and it was pretty close. So I hope his aim is gonna be better once we're in combat. I wonder if it'll be possible to collect different tools and different weapons and have them in your inventory and being able to switch between those depending on the situation. That would be very interesting, because in Little Nightmares 1 and 2, yes, we could use some weapons, like for example the hammer or the hatchet, but you couldn't bring it with you for a long period of time because of the size and the weight, so you couldn't just store them and use them whenever you wanted to. For what we can see, the Necropolis looks like a medieval city. So I wonder what the creators mean when they say eternal energy. What is this energy used for? It's like mechanical energy? Or maybe it's more like almost like a medieval steampunk city? Or maybe this energy is used for some sorcery? We don't know at this point. What we already know is that the Necropolis is part of the Spiral, defined very vaguely as a cluster of dystopian lands. The Spiral is part of the Nowhere, the world of Little Nightmares where some kids go or are abducted to when they have nightmares. We see the protagonists keep working together in order to escape the windmill. I've read that Little Nightmares 3 will not have couch co-op in order to preserve atmosphere and immersion. So while the title is the first in the series to have any sort of multiplayer really, players will need independent devices to play with one another. That said, both players will not need a copy of the game. It's similar to It Takes Two, so a friend pass will allow a second player to jump in. These lower parts of the game might be tedious for some players, but when you play a puzzle platformer, you need to expect these moments, and you should enjoy them too. Enjoy the details on the screen, the crisp sound design, and the snappy animations. Here things start getting more interesting. There is a human there, unless he's a statue, but I think it's a human. And it turned into sand. I don't know why Lo didn't kill the bird, didn't kill the crow in this instance. He wanted the key and he got the key, so that's fine. But the crow might have just took off with the key. But I'm sure there's a reason why, also because Lo is wearing a bird mask. Maybe he has some sort of link with the crows, because he does wear a bird mask and also is wearing a cape, a black cape, almost like a crow, which rhymes with Lo, but I don't know, that's a little bit far-fetched. I love that the animation stayed the same in this game compared to the previous two. I like these snappy animations. And bam, dude, just like that. All of a sudden we have finally some action. I guess not everyone is a crow pacifist like Lo. I wish I could kill mosquitoes as easy as this giant killed the crow. Just like boom, lights out. Oh, and look on the shelf on the left of the door, we have a gnome. I wonder if we can hug gnomes or eat them in this game. Look at these people, petrified or turned into sand. Their bodies crumbling down like sandcastle. It reminds me of Pompeii. Still not as creepy as the first and second game, but fascinating. What we saw was the main monster of this first chapter. His name is Monster Baby, but to me, it looks more like a doll, as we'll see later on in this video. I think the Supermassive Games did a good job here. They changed the environment, they created different characters, but they managed to keep the same vibe that made us all fall in love with the first two games. I'm not gonna lie, I would have liked it more if Tarsier Studio had developed this game, but I think we can trust Supermassive Games when it comes to horror. Not to mention that Supermassive Games took care of the enhanced version of Little Nightmares 2. I find this new setting fascinating. This dead city enveloped in a sandstorm, where everything is permeated by this orange light. We can see the eye symbol on the tower in the background, the same symbol in Little Nightmares 1 and Little Nightmares 2. But what I don't understand are these corpses wrapped in cloth and hanging from the towers. Was this zipline used to move the corpses from one place to another? Perhaps the citizens of Necropolis had to send these corpses to the Lady of the Maw as a sort of tribute, just as the serfs had to pay taxes to the Lord of the Fiefdom. I mean, it's weird, it would be weird, but what's not weird here? This was a nice jump scare in full Little Nightmares style. It seems that these petrified people are now being used as toys by the monster baby. We haven't seen any signs of children yet. There are no handprints on the walls, there are no drawings, nor are there small cages or small beds like in the previous games. And there are no children turned to stone, but only adults, at least for now. This first chapter of Little Nightmares 3 seems free of the more macabre characteristics of the first two games. And I know there is a lot more lore in this world of Little Nightmares, but in general, I'm going to refer to the first two games, so Little Nightmares and Little Nightmares 2. Look at the feathers coming out of the bag on the ground. I thought those were flower bags, but it turns out those bags are full of crow feathers. So the monster baby has the same mechanical eye that we saw in Little Nightmares. If you get hit by its light, you are petrified and then turn into sand or ash. And this was the fate of all these people. At this point, the monster baby and the maw, they must be connected. Maybe the lady sent the monster baby to punish the dwellers of the city. This location is straight out of an Indiana Jones movie. This appears to be quicksand. If Lo and Alone don't hurry, they can get sucked under, in full Indiana Jones or Tomb Raider style. Yeah, it doesn't happen like this in real life, I think. But it's still a Hollywood favorite. Now we're going to see the first combat sequence of the gameplay. Lo attacks the rhino beetles from the distance with his bow and arrow. While Alone finishes the enemy using her wrench as a melee weapon. Now that I think about it, we never had any real fights in the first two games. We dueled using cunning and magic against the main bosses of Little Nightmares and Little Nightmares 2. But we never had a scuffle, a real physical fight with any of the enemies from the first two games. The combat looks good, but I don't know if it will feel good, if they'll manage to make us feel the weight of the blows, nor if the 2.5D graphics will be suited to these moments. I hope so, but combat is not the main focus of games like this anyway, so even if they don't nail the fighting animations, it's not going to be a big deal in my opinion. This underground part of the city is called the catacombs, and seems to be the lair of the insects that infest these dungeons. We also saw other bodies hanging, perhaps an offering to the rhino beetles to keep them in the dungeons, and perhaps the crows were bred to protect the inhabitants from the insects, in case the beetles would reach the city. Lots of questions and no answers. But that's also why the world of Little Nightmares is so intriguing. We are now climbing out of the catacombs. We see other underground tunnels where the insects lay their eggs. I hope that Little Nightmares 3 will give us new clues to understand how the children find themselves in the nowhere. I think that at first the kids just have nightmares, and then over time their dreams get more and more vivid and more real. They find themselves trapped in the nowhere, in this nightmarish reality, and at that point they cannot escape anymore. What a beautiful setting, beautiful lighting too. It looks like a bazaar. Yeah, nope, wrong way. Necropolis is really well done, and you want to explore it even just by watching the gameplay. However, for me the Maw remains the most fascinating location, with its heavy darkness, the noises that echo in the pipes, the grotesque presence of the guests, and the mix of curiosity and fear when you proceed in the claustrophobic darkness. That's what you call a skeleton in the closet. So we got 2 feather dusters, of course made of crow feathers. But going back to the figure in the closet, are those corpses? Or maybe those are just bags full of crow feathers that are just shaped as a human. Now we're going to use this huge vent to glide up with our chutes or umbrellas. We can use the hot air from the desert, which is rushing through those vents below, to move from one platform to another thanks to the feather dusters. That's a cool new mechanic. That looks fun. But wherever we go, we know we're going to meet the huge Chucky doll that wants to play with us. We can hear the ominous steps. And here she comes. Here we can see how the monster baby turned people to stone before. There are still petrified corpses frozen in time, while screaming in horror and while trying to shelter unsuccessfully. These statues really look like a photograph, immortalizing the inhabitants of Pompeii during the eruption of Mount Vesuvius. Yeah, we don't hear her steps anymore. That's not a good sign. It's like a T-Rex in Jurassic Park. And we wake up. We wake up on a bed in a room that, to me, seems like the Maw, due to the dark vibe and the still abnormally small size of the protagonists. And we can see the darkness approaching like the year 2024, when we finally will be able to play Little Nightmares 3. Thank you for watching with me.